I'm standing before the judge with my 73 years weighing on my shoulders, listening to my own daughter accuse me of kidnapping her children. Yes, you heard that right. My daughter Natalie, after disappearing for 15 years, has returned to sue me for raising the 3 children she abandoned in my small apartment when they were just 8, 6, and 4. Your Honor, says her lawyer with that fake smile, my client suffered from severe postpartum depression, and this woman took advantage of her vulnerability to illegally keep her children. I look at Natalie and watch her pretend to cry as if she were the victim of this story. But there's something they don't know, something I've guarded carefully for these past 15 years. In my purse, I have a thick, manila envelope full of secrets that will change everything in this courtroom. The judge asks if I have anything to say in my defense, and I pull out that envelope with steady hands. Your Honor, here is my response to this lawsuit. I hand him the envelope, and when he opens it, his expression changes completely. He leans back in his chair and asks me, "Ma'am, do you know what's in this envelope?" I look him straight in the eyes and answer, "Not everything yet, Your Honor, but I'm sure you'll find what's in there very interesting." My daughter's face turned pale. Her lawyer started sweating, and I, for the first time in 15 years, felt that justice was on my side. My name is Eleanor Wilson. I'm 73 years old and live in a small neighborhood in Boston. For 45 years, I worked as a nurse at a public hospital, raising my daughter Natalie alone after my husband passed away when she was only 5. Natalie grew up to be a hard-working and responsible woman. She married young to Robert, a good man who adored her. They had their son Tyler when they were both barely 20. 2 years later came Mason, and 3 years after that, little Ethan. But when Ethan was just a year old, Robert was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He fought bravely but passed away 6 months later. After Robert's death, Natalie changed. The grief overwhelmed her. She started going out more, staying with Ferns for days at a time, leaving the boys with me. I understood she needed space to process her pain, so I helped however I could, hoping she would heal with time. The boys started calling me Mom when Tyler was just 5 years old. "Grandma Eleanor is our real mom," he would tell people. I corrected them at first, but later I understood that for them, I was their mother. I was the one who woke them up, who made their breakfast, who helped them with homework, who comforted them when they had nightmares. On March 17, 2010, our lives changed forever. Natalie arrived very early, around 6 in the morning, woke up the boys and told them to get dressed quickly. "Come on, you're going to spend the day with Grandma?" she told them. Tyler was 8 years old, Mason was 6, and Ethan was just 4. The 3 arrived at my apartment still sleepy, carrying a small bag with dirty clothes. "Mom, I need to take care of some important business," Natalie told me. "Watch them for 2 hours, please. It's urgent." "What business, sweetie? Do you need help?" I asked. But she was already leaving. "I'll explain later, Mom. Just watch them. I'll be back this afternoon." That was the last time I saw my daughter for 15. The first few days, I waited. The boys kept asking me, "Grandma, when is Mom coming back?" I would tell them, "Soon, my loves, soon." But weeks passed, and nothing. I went to the police, but they said they couldn't do anything because technically the children were with me, not missing. I had to make the most difficult decision of my life. At 58, I officially became a mother again. I continued working as a nurse but requested reduced hours. And I started sewing at home on weekends to support my 3 grandsons. What Natalie never knew during all those years was that I kept every document, every photo, every piece of evidence showing I was the one who raised those children, every report card I signed, every medical bill I paid, every birthday photo, every drawing they made for me on Mother's Day. For 15 years, as my grandsons grew into fine young men, I kept wondering, why did Natalie never come back? Why did she never call? Why did she abandon us like this? The answer came 3 months ago when Tyler turned 23 and received notification of an unexpected inheritance. It turned out that Robert's wealthy uncle had passed away 5 years earlier and had left a life insurance policy worth $300,000 that nobody knew existed until the legal notification arrived. 1 week after that notification, Natalie appeared with her custody lawsuit. When Natalie disappeared, the first few months were the hardest of my life. The boys cried at night, aching for their mother. Why isn't she coming back? Tyler, the oldest, would ask me, "Did we do something wrong?" Mason would say with tears in his eye, and Ethan, the youngest, simply stopped talking for 3 months. I had to be strong for them, but inside I was dying. Not just for the boys, but because my own daughter had been capable of doing something like this. Being irresponsible is one thing, but completely abandoning your children is something I never thought Natalie could do. For the first 6 months, I searched for Natalie everywhere. I went to her friends' houses, asked at places where she had worked before, even put ads in the newspaper, "Natalie Wilson, please contact your family," but nothing. It was as if the earth had swallowed her up. The money was running out quickly. I earned $2,500 a month as a part-time nurse, and supporting 3 children with that was nearly impossible. I had to use my savings and start working from home. I did alterations in the mornings, sold homemade cookies on weekends, and in the afternoons, I helped the boys with their homework. Tyler, being the oldest, understood the situation better. "Grandma, I can work after school," he would tell me at just 8 years old. "No, my child," I would answer. "Your job is to study and be a kid." But I saw how he took care of his younger brothers, how he became the little man of the house before his time. The boys started to adapt, but every special occasion was a painful reminder. On the first Mother's Day after Natalie left, Tyler made me a drawing that I still keep. It was a little house with 4 people, him, Mason, Ethan, and me. At the top he wrote, "For my mom, Eleanor." When I asked why he called me Mom, he answered, "Because you're the one who takes care of us, who loves us, who's always here." Do you know what Natalie was doing while we struggled each day to survive? That's what tormented me every night as I watched my 3 angels sleep. Was she in trouble? Had she been in an accident? Or had she simply abandoned us for an easier life? The questions consumed me, but I had to stay strong for the boys. That day, I decided I would document everything. Every important moment, every achievement of my grandsons, every sacrifice I made for them. I bought a used camera and started taking pictures of everything. The first day of school each year, school festivals, when they got sick and I took care of them, their birthdays, Christmases. I also kept all the papers, every medical bill I paid when they got sick, every school receipt, every certificate of participation in school events. "Why do you keep all this, Grandma?" Tyler would ask me. "Just in case, my boy," I would answer, "just in case." What hurt the most wasn't the work or the fatigue, it was seeing how the boys stopped asking about their mother. By the 2nd year, they no longer mentioned Natalie. By the 3rd year, when someone asked about their parents, they would say, "We live with our grandmother." By the 4th year, When Tyler turned 12, he told me something that broke my heart. "Grandma, I think my mom doesn't love us anymore. And you know what? I don't care anymore. You love us more than she does." During all those years, I kept waiting for a call, a letter, some sign that Natalie was alive and might someday return for her children. But nothing. Not on Christmas, not on the boys' birthdays, not when Mason broke his arm and was hospitalized for 3 days, not when Ethan had pneumonia and I thought I was going to lose him. The neighbors started to whisper, "Poor children abandoned by their mother," they would say. "How good Mrs. Wilson is raising those children all by herself." But there were also cruel comments. "I bet the daughter is into drugs. I'm sure she's in jail. Those children are going to grow up traumatized." I defended my grandsons from those comments, but deep down I knew people were right about one thing. They had been abandoned, and that gave me a rage I couldn't express. How can a mother abandon her children like that? How can she live knowing her children need her? The years passed, and I aged quickly. By 65, my hair was completely white, and deep wrinkles lined my face. My hands became gnarled from so much work. My back bent from carrying Ethan when he was little and had nightmares. But my grandsons grew up healthy, intelligent, good students. Tyler graduated from high school with honors. Mason turned out to be a genius with mathematics. And Ethan, my baby, became an incredible artist. The three always told me, "Grandma, everything we are is thanks to you." One day, while cleaning Natalie's closet, I found something that would change our story. Among her forgotten belongings was an old agenda. Flipping through it, I discovered several addresses and phone numbers I didn't recognize, as well as references to people she had never mentioned. There was one in particular that appeared frequently, James, Chicago. Who was this James? And why were there so many notes about Chicago? Natalie had never mentioned having friends or interests in that city. I remember that during the months before her disappearance, she received many calls that she took in private, and sometimes I would hear her talking in a low voice on the phone when she thought no one could hear her. I decided to do something I had never contemplated: investigate on my own. I hired a private detective with the little savings I had when Tyler turned 18. What I discovered left me frozen. Natalie hadn't disappeared. She had been living in Chicago all these years under a false identity, married to a man named James Parker who had a criminal record. They had been scamming families, selling them fake investment plans in non-existent businesses. She knew perfectly well where we were. She knew I was raising her children, and she simply didn't tell. The detective showed me photos of Natalie in expensive restaurants, on trips to Hawaii, living a luxurious life while I sacrificed to give her children the basics. "Mrs. Wilson," the detective told me, "your daughter has been monitoring your family all these years. She knows everything about you and the boys." "Then why did she never come back?" I asked. "Because it wasn't convenient for her," he replied. "But believe me, someday she'll return when she has a reason to do so." Those words haunted me for months. What reason could Natalie have for returning after so much time? What could she want from us now that the children were already adults? The answer came 3 months ago when Tyler received notification of his great-uncle's life insurance policy, $300,000 that no one knew existed. Tyler's great-uncle had updated his policy years before he died, naming his grandnephew as the beneficiary. 1 week after that notification, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Mom," said a voice I hadn't heard in 15 years. "It's me, Natalie. I need to talk to you urgently. My blood ran cold. After 15 years of silence, my daughter was returning, but I already knew why. When I heard Natalie's voice after 15 years, I felt no joy or relief. I felt a strange calm, as if I had been waiting for this moment my entire life. "Hello, Natalie," I said in a voice I didn't even recognize myself. It was firm, controlled. "How are you, Mom? Please, I need to see you. It's very important. It's about the boys," she told me with that manipulative voice I knew so well. "I've been very sick with severe depression. The doctors told me I need to reconnect with my family to heal." I laughed. Yes, I laughed in her face, or rather in her ear. Depression? After 15 years? And just now that Tyler inherited? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "How do you know about the insurance?" she asked, and in that question, everything was revealed. She didn't deny knowing about the money, didn't feign surprise. She simply wanted to know how I had found out. "I know many things, daughter," I told her. "I know you live in Chicago under the name Parker. I know your husband is called James and has a criminal record for fraud. I know you've been scamming families with fake investment plans. I know you've been monitoring this family for years." The silence on the other end was longer this time. When she spoke, her voice had completely changed. She was no longer the repentant daughter, but the calculating woman she truly was. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her tone betrayed her. "I just want to see my children. I have the right." "Right?" I asked her. "What right do you have over children you abandoned for 15 years? I have been their mother. I raised them, educated them, loved them. They don't even remember you." "They are legally my children," she replied coldly, "and I'm going to get them back." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my armchair looking at the boxes where I kept all my grandson's documents, 15 years of evidence, 15 years of being the only mother they knew. But I knew Natalie was right about one thing. Legally, she was still their mother. I had never officially adopted the boys because I always thought she would someday return. Now I realized that had been a mistake. The next morning, I called Tyler, Mason, and Ethan. The three already lived independently. Tyler worked as an engineer, Mason studied medicine, and Ethan had his art studio, but they came to visit me every week. "Boys," I told them when they were gathered in my living room, "I need to tell you something important. Your mother has returned." The reaction of all three was identical: surprise, then confusion, then anger. "Our mother?" asked Tyler. "Grandma, you are our mother. That woman abandoned us." "What does she want?" asked Mason with clenched fists. Ethan, my sensitive artist, simply began to cry. "Why is she coming back now, Grandma? Why now that we're happy?" I explained everything: the life insurance, the detective's investigations, the phone call. I told them Natalie would probably try to get legal custody to access Tyler's money. "She can go to hell," said Tyler. "That money is mine, and if I want to give it to someone, I'll give it to you, Grandma. You're the one who deserves it." "It's not that simple, my boy," I explained. "If she gets retroactive custody, she can claim rights to everything, even over the decisions you make with your money." That night, after my grandsons left, I took out all the boxes of documents and put them on my dining room table. There were photos, medical receipts, school report cards, letters from teachers, diplomas, vaccination certificates, all signed by me over 50. But there was something else, something I had kept since the first day and had never told anyone. The day Natalie abandoned the boys, She didn't just leave. Before going, she entered my bedroom and stole my mother's jewelry, my most valuable inheritance. She also took $3,000 that I had saved for emergencies. I discovered it that same afternoon, but I said nothing because I had to focus on the children. I never reported the theft to the police because she was my daughter, but I did keep the evidence. The jewelry was registered with serial numbers, and I had photographed the bills because my late husband had taught me to document the money we kept at home. What Natalie also didn't know was that I had installed small cameras in the common areas of the house years earlier, after one of her boyfriends had tried to rob me. Those cameras had captured the scene of Natalie stealing my belongings the day she disappeared. I also had all the returned letters I had sent to addresses her friends had given me, proving I had tried to contact her for years. All this formed a devastating file that demonstrated not only her abandonment, but also her disinterest and her criminal behavior. However, I still needed something important, documenting her current intention to claim the children only for money. I decided to follow the advice of an old nurse friend who always said, "Sometimes, to heal a wound, you first have to let all the poison drain out." I was going to let Natalie show her true nature and document it meticulously. But the most important thing wasn't what I had against Natalie. The most important thing was what I had Lil during these 15 years. The next morning, I went to the bank where I had my savings account for 15 years. Every dollar I had left after supporting the boys, I had saved dollar by dollar, month after month, year after year. When I opened my account statement, I could hardly believe the figure myself, $27,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to hire the best family lawyer in the city. I also had something Natalie didn't know about. 3 years earlier, when Tyler turned 20, he had insisted that I put the apartment in his name. "Grandma," he had told me, "you've given everything for us. Now we want to make sure you always have a home." The 3 brothers had pooled money to pay for all the legal procedures. Officially, I owned nothing, but I had something much more valuable: the unconditional love of 3 men who considered me their true mother. That afternoon, I called the most expensive lawyer I could find. "Mr. Thompson," I said on the phone, "I need your help with a very complicated custody case." "Custody, ma'am?" he asked, confused. "Didn't you tell me your grandsons are already adults?" "Yes, but my daughter abandoned them 15 years ago, and now she's coming back wanting rights over them. I think it's for money." "I understand," he said. "And what evidence do you have?" I laughed softly. "Counselor, I have 15 years of evidence. When can you see me?" 2 weeks later, Natalie appeared at my door with a lawyer and an official lawsuit. When I opened the door and saw her after 15 years, I was shocked by how different she looked. She wore expensive clothes, flashy jewelry, her hair dyed blonde, long nails. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had been living well while I sacrificed for her children. "Hello, Mom," she said with a fake smile. "I've come for my children." I looked her up and down and smiled back. "Hello, Natalie. Your children don't live here anymore. They're independent adults. But come in. I want you to meet my lawyer." The surprised look on her face was delicious. She hadn't expected me to be prepared. During the following weeks, as we waited for the hearing date, I became a perfect actress. Every time Natalie called or came to the house, I pretended to be the vulnerable grandmother she expected to find. "Oh, my girl," I would say with a trembling voice, "I'm too old for these legal problems. If you want to take the boys, maybe it's for the best. I can't take care of anyone anymore. Natalie swallowed every word. Yes, Mom, it's for the best. The boys need their real mother. And don't worry, I'll take care of everything. You can stay in the apartment, no problem. What she didn't know was that each of those conversations was being recorded by my old device, and in addition, my lawyer had installed professional microphones in my living room. Every lie she told, every manipulation, every malicious plan she revealed, without realizing it, everything was recorded. You know what's best, Mom? She told me one afternoon while we were having coffee. That Tyler has already inherited his great-uncle's insurance, $300,000. With that money, I can finally give my children the life they deserve. Oh, that's good, my dear, I replied, feigning innocence. And how are you going to do that? Well, since I'm going to be their legal guardian again, I'll be able to manage their finances until they get married or turn 30. No, a mother must always protect her children from money. I had to work hard not to laugh in her face. Tyler was already 23 and an engineer. Mason was 21 and studying medicine. Ethan was 19 and had his own art business. None of them needed financial guardianship. But Natalie clearly didn't understand the laws. As the day of the hearing approached, my nights became increasingly restless. Memories of all these years assaulted me in the darkness. I remembered Tyler, at just 8 years old, asking me why his mother wasn't coming back, Mason crying silently when he saw other children with their mothers at the park, Ethan, who for years drew a family of 4 people, 3 boys and a grandmother, but never a mother. I remembered the times I had to choose between buying medicine for my arthritis or school books for the boys. The nights I stayed awake when one of them got sick with no one to relieve me. The school meetings where the teachers looked at me with that mixture of pity and admiration. But I also remembered the moments of happiness. The Christmases around our small tree, exchanging handmade gifts because we couldn't afford more. Sunday afternoons cooking together. The summers when we saved all year to spend a week at the beach, in a tiny apartment that we shared with joy. Perhaps what hurt the most wasn't Natalie's abandonment, but thinking about how much she had missed. She didn't see Tyler win his first math competition. She didn't hear Mason play the violin at the school concert. She didn't see Ethan's first paintings displayed at the neighborhood fair. She missed the laughter, the tears, the hugs, the falls, the triumphs. She missed the lives of her own children. And now she wanted to come back, not out of love, but out of greed. How could a mother do that? While I pretended to agree with her plans, I secretly worked with my lawyer to prepare the perfect defense. Mr. Thompson had explained to me that the case was more complex than it seemed. Mrs. Wilson, he told me in one of our secret meetings, legally Natalie is still the mother of the boys, but there's something called home abandonment that can work in our favor. If we can prove that she deliberately abandoned the children without justification, a judge can terminate her parental rights. And what do we need to prove that? I asked. Documentation. Lots of documentation. Evidence that you were solely responsible for the children all these years. I smiled and opened the first box of documents. Counselor, I hope you have time because this is going to take several days to review. The lawyer's eyes widened when he saw the amount of paper I had kept. Medical receipts with my signature as the person responsible, school report cards where I appeared as the guardian, photographs of every birthday, every graduation, every important event, letters from teachers addressed to me as the grandmother raising the boys. Mrs. Wilson, he said after reviewing the first box, In my 25 years as a lawyer, I've never seen such complete documentation. You basically have these boys' entire lives here. I knew I would need it someday, I confessed. A mother doesn't just abandon her children like that. I knew there had to be a reason, and that someday that reason would appear. But the best came when I showed him the recordings of the conversations with Natalie. The lawyer listened to them with a smile that grew with each minute. "Ma'am, do you realize that your daughter has just confessed to several crimes in these recordings? She admits she wants to control her adult son's money. She admits she abandoned the children without a real medical reason, and she admits she was monitoring the family without making contact." I also told him about the stolen jewelry and the money she had taken. The lawyer asked me to go to the police to file the report I had never made. "But isn't it too late now?" I asked. "No, ma'am. Family theft doesn't expire when you can prove it was part of a pattern of abandonment and abuse. And with the registered jewelry and the photographs of the money, we have a solid case." While we prepared all this evidence, I continued to see Natalie regularly, always pretending to be the weak grandmother who would easily surrender. She was so confident that she even told me details about her life in Chicago. "You know, Mom, James and I have had a very successful business all these years. We sell investment plans to families who want to secure their future." "Investment plans?" I asked, feigning interest. "Yes, it's incredible how easy it is. Families invest their savings in projects that we promise will give them great benefits. Many don't even verify if the projects are real." What Natalie didn't know was that my private detective had been investigating her investment business. It turned out that James and she were selling fake investment plans to middle-class families. They collected large sums for investments in non-existent real estate projects, and when families wanted to get their money back, they disappeared. They had scammed at least 20 families in Chicago. My lawyer told me that information could be crucial to the case. If we can prove that she returned only for the insurance money and that she has a history of investment scams, a judge will clearly see what her real intentions are. But I wanted more. I wanted Natalie to completely condemn herself with her own words. One afternoon, I invited her to eat and prepared her favorite childhood meal, apple pie with homemade ice cream. As we ate, I made her talk about her future plans. "Daughter, once you have custody of the boys again, what are you going to do?" "Well, Mom, the first thing is to make sure Tyler's money is well invested. James knows some very good businesses where we can grow that inheritance." "Businesses like the investment ones?" "Exactly. Tyler doesn't understand business. He's very naive. If he leaves that money in the bank, inflation will eat it up. But if we invest it well, in 5 years, it can be $1 million instead of 3. Every word she said was more evidence against her. Plans to control her adult son's money, plans to involve him in illegal businesses, plans to manipulate him using her position as a mother. "And the other boys," I asked, "are you also going to help them with their finances?" "Of course. Mason is going to be a doctor. He's going to earn very well. And Ethan with his art, well, artists always need someone to manage them. A good mother always protects her children's finances." That night, after she left, I sat in my armchair and cried, not from sadness, but from rage. For 15 years, while I sacrificed to give those children love, education, values, and stability, she had been planning to return only when there was money involved. But I also cried from pride, because I knew that my grandsons, my true children of the heart, would never fall for her manipulations. I had raised them well. with strong values, with emotional intelligence. They knew who their true mother was. The week before the hearing, Natalie visited me for the last time before the trial. She arrived very well dressed, with papers in hand, acting as if she had already won. "Mom, I want you to know that I don't hold a grudge against you," she said with that fake smile. "I know you did the best you could with my children, but now it's time for me to take control again." "Of course, daughter," I said, serving her coffee in my best cup. "I just hope the boys understand. They've been with me so long that it might be hard for them to adjust."
Don't worry about that. Children always prefer their real mother. It's natural instinct.
As she said that, I was thinking of Tyler saying, "You are our real mother." I was thinking of Mason protecting me when neighbors spoke ill of us. I was thinking of Ethan crying in my arms every time he had nightmares. "One more thing, Mom," she said before leaving. "After the hearing, the boys will probably come live with me in Chicago. It will be better for everyone to make a clean cut." "A clean cut?" I asked. "Yes, it's better they have no contact with you for a while. They need to reconnect with me as their mother, and your presence could confuse them. Maybe in a few years, when they're well adjusted, they can visit you." That's when I realized the magnitude of her plan. She not only wanted the money, she wanted to erase me completely from my grandsons' lives. She wanted them to forget 15 years of love, sacrifice, and dedication. But what Natalie didn't know was that this conversation, like all the others, was being recorded, and that the next day I was going to arrive at that court with 15 years of evidence, with recordings of all her malicious plans, and with the unconditional love of 3 men who would never choose her over me. The night before the hearing, my 3 grandsons came for dinner. I prepared their favorite meal, and we sat at the same table where we had shared thousands of meals over 15. "Grandma," Tyler told me, taking my hand, "no matter what happens tomorrow, you are our mother, and that will never change." "Never," Mason confirmed. "That woman may have papers, but you have our heart." Ethan, my sensitive artist, said nothing, just hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Tomorrow you'll win, Grandma, because truth always wins." That night I slept peacefully for the first time in months. I knew the battle was about to begin, but I also knew that I had all the weapons to win it. On the day of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse 2 hours early. I wore my best black dress, the same one I wore to Natalie's high school graduation, and in my hands I carried a briefcase full of documents and 2 recorders. My lawyer had told me we should be prepared for anything. Natalie arrived 15 minutes late, all dressed up as if for a party, with her young lawyer who looked more nervous than confident. When she saw me, she smiled at me with that fake smile that I knew so well. "Hello, Mom," she said loudly for everyone to hear. "I'm so sorry we had to come to this." I didn't answer her. I just looked at her and sat in my place with my hands on the briefcase. My 3 grandsons entered together, dressed in formal suits they had bought especially for this day. Tyler looked imposing. At 23, Mason had that intelligent look that always characterized him, and Ethan, my artist, carried a folder with something I didn't know what it was. When Natalie saw them, she ran toward them with open arms. "My boys, how I've missed you." The reaction of all 3 was identical. They stood still without moving, looking at her as if she were a stranger, because that's what she was to them, a stranger. "Hello, Natalie," Tyler told her with a coldness that filled me with pride. "I see you finally decided to show up." The judge entered and began the hearing. Natalie's lawyer spoke first, painting a story about a young mother who had suffered severe postpartum depression and who had needed time to heal before being able to return for her children. "Your Honor," he was saying with a dramatic voice, "my client has lived 15 years of emotional torture separated from the children she loves, fighting against a mental illness that society doesn't understand. Now that she is completely recovered, she only asks for the opportunity to reconnect with her children and ensure their future well-being." When he finished, the judge looked at me. "Mrs. Wilson, do you have anything to say in your defense?" I got up slowly, opened my briefcase, and took out the first manila envelope, the same one I had mentioned at the beginning of this whole story. "Your Honor," I said with a clear and strong voice, "here I have 15 years of evidence of who has truly been the mother of these boys." I handed the envelope to the judge. When he opened it, his expression changed immediately. Inside were all the most important photographs. Tyler on his first day of school with me holding his hand, Mason in the hospital when he broke his arm with me sleeping in the chair next to him, Ethan at his first art exhibition with me applauding him in the front row. "Ma'am," the judge said to me, "do you know what's in this envelope?" "Not everything yet, Your Honor," I answered, "but I'm sure you'll find what's in there very interesting." Then I took out the second box. These are all the medical documents of my grandsons for 15 years. Every vaccine, every consultation, every emergency, all signed by me as the person responsible. Natalie's face was turning pale, but her lawyer still seemed confident. I took out the third box. These are all the school documents, 15 years of report cards, letters from teachers, certificates of participation in events, all signed by the grandmother who raised them. "Your Honor," interrupted Natalie's lawyer, "the fact that the lady has taken care of the children doesn't change the fact that my client is the legal mother." "You're right, counselor," I said, smiling. "That's why I brought this." I took out my fourth surprise, the old recorder. "Your Honor, these are recorded conversations between the plaintiff and me during the last few weeks. I think they will be very revealing." I played the first recording. Natalie's voice filled the courtroom. "The boys need their real mother. And don't worry, I'll take care of everything." The judge asked me to play more. In the second recording, Natalie talked about Tyler's insurance. $300,000. With that money, I can finally give my children the life they deserve. In the third, the most devastating one, Natalie explained her financial plans. "Since I'm going to be their legal guardian again, I'll be able to manage their finances until they get married or turn 30. A mother always needs to protect her children from money." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Natalie was white as a sheet, and her lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. "Your Honor," I said calmly, "my daughter didn't return out of maternal love. She returned for money, and not just for Tyler's insurance." I took out my fifth surprise, the private detective's report. "Natalie Wilson has been living in Chicago under the name Natalie Parker, married to James Parker, who has a criminal record for fraud. The two of them have been scamming families with fake investments for years." The judge reviewed the report with increasing surprise. "And how did you obtain this information, ma'am?" "I hired a private detective 3 years ago, Your Honor, because a mother doesn't just abandon her children like that. I knew there had to be a reason, and that someday that reason would appear." "That's a lie," shouted Natalie, rising from her seat. "I've never scammed anyone." "Your Honor," my lawyer said calmly, "we have here the complaints filed by 20 families in Chicago, all against James Parker and his wife Natalie Parker for selling fraudulent investments." But I still wasn't finished. I took out my sixth surprise. Your Honor, the day Natalie abandoned the children, she didn't just leave. Before going, she entered my bedroom and stole my mother's jewelry, my most valuable inheritance, and $3,000 that I had saved for emergencies. I showed him the photos of the jewelry with their registered serial numbers and the photographs of the bills that my husband had taught me to document. That's also a lie, Natalie shouted again. I never stole anything. Then how do you explain this? I asked, taking out my seventh and final surprise. They were photographs taken by the private detective, Natalie, in a pawn shop in Chicago selling my mother's jewelry. The dates on the photos matched exactly with the week she had disappeared. The judge looked at the photos, then looked at Natalie, then looked at me. Mrs. Wilson, did you ever report this theft? No, Your Honor, she was my daughter. I thought maybe she was desperate. Maybe she had problems. I never imagined she was going to disappear for 15 years. At that moment, Tyler stood up. Your Honor, may I say something? Go ahead, young man. My grandmother, Eleanor, is the only mother we have ever known. That woman, he pointed to Natalie, abandoned us when we were children and is now returning because she found out about my inheritance. I'm an engineer. I'm 23 years old, and I want to officially declare that I don't want to have any kind of relationship with her. My real mother is sitting right there, he pointed at me. Mason stood up too. Me too, Your Honor. I study medicine. I'm 21 years old. And that woman is not my mother. My mother is Eleanor Wilson, who took care of me when I had pneumonia, who worked double shifts to pay for my textbooks, who never abandoned me. Ethan, my sensitive artist, stood up with his folder. Your Honor, I also want to die the same, but I also want to show you this. He opened his folder and took out a drawing. It was a portrait of me, but not just any portrait. It was me in all the important moments of their lives, reading them stories, healing their scraped knees, applauding at their graduations, hugging them when they cried. This drawing is called My Mother, Ethan said with a trembling voice, and it represents the only woman who deserves that title in my life. Natalie was crying, but not from sadness. It was from rage, from frustration, because she saw how her perfect plan was crumbling before her eyes. They are legally my children, she shouted. They are my children. I don't care what they say, they're mine. Not anymore, said the judge with a firm voice. Based on the evidence presented, it's clear that you deliberately abandoned these minors with no intention of returning. You only came back when there was an economic motivation. Furthermore, the evidence suggests that you committed family theft and have been involved in fraudulent activities. He turned to the bailiffs. Arrest Mrs. Natalie Wilson for child abandonment, family theft, and suspicion of fraud. Also, issue a search warrant for James Parker. As they took Natalie away in handcuffs, she screamed at me, "This isn't over, you old woman. You're going to pay for this. Those children are mine." But I wasn't listening to her anymore. I was looking at my 3 grandsons who ran to me and hugged me like when they were little. "Thank you, Grandma," Tyler whispered in my ear. "Thank you for saving us again." The judge rose from his seat and approached us. "Mrs. Wilson," he said to me, "in my 30 years as a judge, I've never seen such a clear case of maternal love. These young men are very lucky to have you." "No, Your Honor," I replied, hugging my grandsons. "I'm the lucky one." 6 months after the hearing, my life changed in ways I never imagined possible. Natalie was sentenced to 5 years in prison for child abandonment, family theft, and involvement in fraud schemes. Her husband, James, was arrested in Chicago and faced even more serious charges. The 20 families they had scammed were able to recover part of their money thanks to the investigations that my case had initiated. But the most important thing wasn't the consequences for her. The most important thing was what my grandsons decided to do. 1 week after the sentence, Tyler came to my apartment with a mysterious smile. "Grandma, Mason, Ethan, and I have made an important decision. We want you to come with us to sign some papers." "What papers, my boy?" I asked him. "You'll see, it's a surprise." The three took me to a law office downtown. There, the attorney explained something that left me speechless. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, "the young men Tyler, Mason, and Ethan want to legally change their last names. Instead of carrying their biological father's last name, they want to have your last name, Wilson." I sat down because my legs wouldn't respond. "Are you sure, boys? Changing your last name is a very serious thing." "We've never been more sure of anything in our lives," Tyler told me. "For 15 years you were our mother. Now we want the whole world to know it officially." Mason took my hand. "Grandma, you gave us your last name when you gave us your love. Now we want to give it back to you." Ethan, my sensitive artist, had prepared something special. He pulled out 3 documents handwritten in his beautiful calligraphy. "These are our certificates of emotional adoption," he told me. "Officially, in our hearts, Eleanor Wilson adopted us on March 17, 2010. That is our true birth date as a family." I cried like I hadn't cried in years. But this time, they were tears of pure happiness. When we left the law office, Tyler took me somewhere else. "One more surprise, Grandma." They brought me to a beautiful house in a quiet residential neighborhood with a garden full of flowers and a large terrace where you could see the sunset. "Whose house is this?" I asked. "Yours," the 3 said at the same time. "We all pooled our savings," Mason explained. "Tyler put in part of his inheritance, I put in what I earned working while studying, and Ethan sold several of his art pieces. We want you to have the house you deserve." "But boys, I'm fine in my apartment," I started to say. "No, Grandma," Ethan interrupted me. "You lived in that small apartment because you were raising us with limited resources. Now that we're successful adults, it's time for you to live like the queen you've always been to us." The house was perfect. It had a large bedroom for me, a spacious living room for when they came to visit, a modern kitchen where I could prepare their favorite meals, and best of all, it had 3 additional bedrooms. "One for each of us," Tyler explained, "for when we come to stay with you, which will be very often." During the following months, we moved together to the new house. I took charge of decorating it with all the photos from our 15 years together, and they helped me create the most beautiful home I had ever had in my life. Tyler Wilson, got a promotion at his engineering job and decided to specialize in building housing for low-income families. "I want to help other families like ours," he told me. Mason Wilson, continued studying medicine with a specialization in pediatrics. "I want to take care of children the way you took care of us," he explained to me. Ethan Wilson, opened his own art gallery and began giving free classes to children from marginalized communities. "I want to teach them that art can save them, just like you saved us." Sundays became our sacred day. All 3 would come to eat, bring their girlfriends for me to meet, and we'd spend hours telling stories and laughing together. One Sunday, 6 months after moving in, Tyler told me something that filled my heart. "Grandma, Hannah and I are getting married next year." Hannah had been his girlfriend for 2 years, a sweet girl studying architecture. How wonderful, my boy, I said. And when are you planning to get married? March 17th, he replied with a smile. On the anniversary of the day we officially became your family. Mason also had news. I'm getting married soon too, Grandma, to Jessica, and she wants you to know that she's very excited to become part of this family. Ethan, my eternal baby, took my hands. I don't have a serious girlfriend yet, but when I do, you'll be the first to know her because your opinion is what matters most to me in the world. That Sunday, after they left, I sat on my new terrace watching the sunset. At 74, I had a beautiful house, 3 successful sons who loved me unconditionally, and soon I would have daughters-in-law who had already accepted me as their mother-in-law. But the best thing of all was knowing that I had made the right decisions. I had protected my grandsons from a mother who only saw them as a source of money. I had fought for them when no one else would. I had shown that true love has nothing to do with blood, but with sacrifice, dedication, and constant presence. A year later, at Tyler's wedding, when they asked me to give a speech as the mother of the groom, I stood in front of all the guests and said, 16 years ago, 3 little boys came into my life in the most unexpected way. Their mother left them with me for 2 hours and never returned. Those 2 hours turned into 16 years of the greatest happiness of my life. Many people tell me that I'm a hero for having raised my grandsons alone, but I tell them that they are the heroes. They gave me purpose when I thought my life was already over. They gave me love when I felt alone. They gave me a reason to get up every morning and be the best version of myself. Today, Tyler marries Hannah, and I not only gain a daughter-in-law, but our family grows. Mason will soon marry Jessica, and Ethan will find his soulmate when the time is right. But no matter how much this family grows, we will always remember that it all started with 3 brave boys who chose love over blood, and a grandmother who learned that it's never too late to start again. To all the women listening to me, if life puts children in your arms, no matter how they arrive, love them with all your heart, because true love always finds a way to create family. When I finished my speech, there wasn't a dry eye at the wedding. Tyler hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for choosing us, Mom." Because yes, now they call me Mom. Officially, legally, and above all, from the heart. 2 weeks ago, I received a letter from prison. It was from Natalie, asking for forgiveness and wanting to know her children again. The letter said, "Mom, I made a mistake. I want a second chance." I showed the letter to Tyler, Mason, and Ethan. The 3 read it in silence. "What do you want to do?" I asked them. "Nothing," Tyler answered. "That woman had 16 years to ask us for forgiveness. She's only doing it now because she's in prison and feels alone. We already have a mother, and she's here in this house cooking for us every Sunday. Besides," added Mason, "a real mother doesn't come and go as it suits her. You never abandoned us, not even in the worst moments." Ethan took the letter and put it in the fireplace. Some decisions can't be undone. "Grandma, she chose money over us. We chose love over blood, and it was the best decision of our lives." As I watched the letter burn, I thought of all the women who are going through similar situations. Women who are raising grandchildren or great-grandchildren because their children or grandchildren abandoned them. Women who are being exploited by ungrateful families. Women who think they no longer have value because they are aging. I want them to know that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to claim your dignity. It's never too late to start a new life. At 74, I have the most beautiful family in the world, a home of my own, the satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing. I didn't allow myself to be used, I didn't allow my grandsons to be hurt, and I didn't let fear stop me from fighting for what was right. My story began with abandonment, but it ended with a family stronger and more united than ever, because I learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by who is present in the difficult moments, who celebrates your triumphs, and who loves you unconditionally. Today, as I write this on my terrace, waiting for my 3 sons to come for dinner, I can proudly say that I am Eleanor Wilson, mother of Tyler, Mason, and Ethan Wilson, and that is the most important identity I have had in my life.